Hi. Hello. I'm so over the moon to be here with you right now. I'm honored and excited to share this moment for us both. And it's a new beginning. It's a brand new beginning. A birth is at hand. No matter when you watch or hear this episode, the energy of creation is happening. So just take a moment, put your hands on your heart. Take a deep breath right where you are in your life right now. This is a beginning. It always is. It's the eternally present moment. And I could not be happier than to be here with you for that. So this podcast has been forming for, and I kid you not, it's going to sound like I'm making it up, but I swear I'm not, 9 months. 9 months. So I conceived the idea of a podcast somewhere in a meditation, in my dreams, walking. I don't know exactly, but it just started to bubble up. And some of my friends and family members and followers, practitioners that I work with started to mention the idea as well, and I knew there was something to it. And then the timing just felt right, that something that I love and have been so nourished by is something that I feel called to do. Podcasts have been there for me. Oh my gosh. So many times washing the dishes, standing at the sink, doing the laundry. I mean, it's countless. They've been there for me in grief, in loss, in challenging moments of all kinds, and also to inspire me and replenish me for my teaching, my parenting, my friending, my daughtering, my sistering, every which way. Just been there for me in my life. And then I felt the urge, the compulsion, the calling that I want to give my offerings for your best, most liberated life in the same way, in the podcast that you can take wherever you are, whenever you need it. So thank you for showing up today in curiosity, in the spirit of living your most interesting, creative, authentic life and opening to more joy, more healing, more living. We need places to be authentic, to relax, to tune in, to unplug, to open up, to find our hearts, to connect to each other, and to just be humans together. And that's what I'm looking forward to doing with you. So in full transparency, I'm having to cling to my notes to keep from floating off in a cloud of adrenaline and endorphins. I'm just that happy to be here and honestly, a bit terrified. So let me just tell you how our podcast will go together. We will always start with a short guided relaxation, followed by a question of the day for you to ponder and just have that inspired, intentional moment in your day. And then drive into the theme. No, let's not drive into it. Let's dive into it. Dive into the theme and topic of the episode. And we'll finish with breath and peaceful hearts. So wrapped up in the philosophy and conversation will be active participation, a little bit of podcast yoga, if you will. So what are we into today? Let's just take a moment and close your eyes. And take a couple of breaths. Inhale through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. Inhale through your nose. And exhale through your mouth. One more time. Inhale. And exhale. Place one hand in the center of your chest. Maybe you'll feel your heartbeat there. Maybe you feel your chest rising and falling with your breath. Maybe you feel the contact with your hand and your body, and it reminds you that you've been somewhere else today. And let me invite you to the here and the now. Let me invite you to this special, perfect, present moment. And as you feel your breath, maybe hear your breath, bring up the image of the portrait setting on your phone camera. Do you know what I mean, the portrait setting? Have you used that? When you dial into that, one thing becomes crystal clear in the frame, and everything else becomes soft, sort of fuzzy, glowing. And that one thing right now that we're focusing in on, the one thing that that portrait setting is on, is your breath. Everything else in your life in this moment is soft, a little hazy, a little fuzzy. And it's just you and your breathing. We're just here together to witness, to observe, to pause and breathe. Okay. Take a longer breath in now. Hold it in your chest. Feel that expansion in your chest. And then let it go. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. Okay, so that's our mindful breath moment. And now I'm going to pose a question of the day for you. Maybe your mind's a little clearer, your body's a little more relaxed. How do I find calm courage to follow the call of the soul when the mind is screaming no in fear? Let me repeat that. How do you find calm courage to follow the call of the soul when your mind is screaming no in fear? So another way we could think of that is, how do we get out of the way of our own fear-based reactions? Some of them very understandable and warranted, and some of them are on repeat or autopilot. But discerning what's fear that I should listen to, what's fear that's habitual or ineffective, unnecessary, even hurtful in a particular situation. And how do I get through that so I can get to the deeper soulful call that's drawing forth my best self, my most creative self, my most adventurous self, my most loving self, my most alive self? Okay, so just take a moment for that. Now, if you're in a place where you could write it down, you might write that down. If you're driving, if you're walking, just absorb it, feel it. And that is the theme for today. So, I mentioned a little bit earlier, if you listened to the Get to Know You Meet and Greet short little podcast, that I'm terrified of sharks. And this is why that's relevant. I'm going to tell you a little story about me and sharks and this podcast, and why the title of this podcast is Starting a Podcast is Scarier Than Swimming with Sharks. It might seem strange because I've been teaching for a long time, for decades, and I speak in public often, and I basically have made my whole life speaking in front of people. So you'd think this would be a natural extension, a no-brainer, just the next thing. But no. Nope. Scary. That's how it feels. So let me tell you the story. This past June, I went on a stupendous, glittering dream of a vacation with one side of my family in the Bahamas, the Exuma Islands to be exact. Clementine and I are beyond fortunate to have been gifted this phenomenal experience, and my heart is still bursting with gratitude, but also it was bursting with something else: fear. This side of my family is comprised of some serious thrill seekers and adventure junkies of all ages. And this is great because this means that I get pushed to have adventures too. And I have that bone in my body. I do. I like a good thrill, but it depends on what it is. Besides excitement, I have also felt anxiety, discomfort, worry, and sometimes dread when I'm pushing an edge. So let's take a moment and go back. It's 1975, and I'm at sleepaway camp when Jaws comes out. I'm old enough that I was around for the original release, that's right, and I was chomping at the bit, pardon the pun, to see it. Now, right now, we are celebrating the 50-year anniversary of Jaws right at the launch of this podcast, and this, I think, very relevant story that I want to share with you so that we can all kind of ponder this question of how fear can be harmful or hurtful, depending. All right, so I'm at sleepaway camp, and I beg my mom relentlessly. Actually, before I got there, I was begging her, and then when I was there, I even wrote letters from camp with basically two pieces of news. One was that I would never get over it if I couldn't see it, probably never forgive her when we got home. And the other was that a young camper got her period, and I didn't really know what that was or what was going on, but I thought it was most intriguing and alarming thing to happen at camp. So those are my two main pieces of information. Interestingly, both involving the same kind of fluid. So I beg her so much that when I get home, she gives in. My dear, dear mom, who just wants to make me happy, finally gives in. Now, I don't know why this was so important to me because I absolutely love water and swimming, and I always fancied myself part mermaid. So why I would want to delve into the ocean horror at this tender age is completely beyond me, but I was obsessed and wanted I did. And we saw it. My mom, my best friend Lisa at the time, and me. And I was changed, but not in a good way. Nope, not at all. Now, if you haven't seen Jaws, there's a tiny spoiler coming. Tiny, 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 and it happens in the beginning of the film. So I think it's going to be okay. But just so I can make my point, the first Jaws victim was named Chrissy. That was my name until I went to college and decided to use my full name, Christine. So right off the bat, I know this movie is a personal message to me that water is not safe, and I am especially not safe. And I am next. I was afraid of our pool. I was afraid of the bath on a couple occasions, and I heard the theme song everywhere. Da-dun, 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 da-dun. In my dreams, walking down the street, at school. But I persevered, and I spent all of high school on the beach and in the water, and even lived on a sailboat in my early 20s for a spell, but never did I forget. Now, with a little internet search, I recently discovered that it's gallionophobia. Gallionophobia? Well, I'm a gal, and I have this phobia of sharks. And it's spelled like galliophobia. And it affects around 51% of the population. Now, alongside my phobia is something else, fascination. A compelling fascination that I suppress for mental self-preservation most of the time. And then this past June, Clementine and I, on this incredible vacation, discover that on the itinerary, it says swimming with sharks. Swimming with sharks. So the day came. We did a lot of relaxing things, a lot of beautiful, easygoing things, a lot of swimming, a lot of sunning, a lot of islanding, and then the day came. And I had decided that I was going to do it, that I was going to swim with these nurse sharks, that I had heard enough about them. My dad had a wonderful, beautiful, mystical, maybe even spiritual experience with them, and I'm going to do it. I felt like the timing was right. I'm committed to trying things that are scary, but that bring me positive growth. Not scary for no reason, not stupid thrill seeking that just puts me in danger, but things that feel necessary to my growth and my experience of life. These can be tiny little things, or they can be really big. And for me, swimming with nurse sharks was huge. So we get there that day, And I'm feeling like this has to be fine. We have these, incredible water guides. They do it all the time. We're surrounded by people in this open harbor. The sharks swim naturally in. They're very happy. They know people. But then my daughter points out, Mom, if this is so safe, why is there a sign that says nurse sharks do bite? This was a big glitch. This was like, screech, stop, wait a minute, that's different. I didn't think they did bite. They have teeth way back in their mouths, but they have kind of suction cup mouths and they sort of suck things in. So they have to really want it. And I don't think they could suck us all the way in. But nevertheless, that sign was problematic. But I pushed it away because I'd committed, and there was this deeper feeling in me that this was the thing to do. It was a calm, still center below the choppy surface of my mind. So cutting to the chase here, we got in the water and we pet them and we tickled their bellies, and they were indeed, as one of the water guides described, kind of like puppies. It was a little freaky because they're all around your legs and they're swimming. You can't see them all, and some are really big and some are babies. And then I think, oh, the really big ones are going to be protective of the babies. But anyway, long story made a little less long. It was incredible. I loved it. It was safe. We were done. We did it. We overcame something. Clementine did it. She had been terrified as well, but she wanted to do it. And it was more than what I hoped for. And then 2 days later on the itinerary, swimming with sharks again. Now, this time it's reef sharks. This time we are way out in the middle of the ocean, like hours and hours and hours of traveling through the night. And the reef sharks are, they're living it up out there in their big old ocean. And it feels more like we're visiting than when they came to visit us at the harbor on that little island. This feels like we're going into very big, deep, uncharted territory. And I decided I wasn't going to do it. And I was okay with that. I'm like, you know what? I did the nurse sharks. I don't need to push it. Clementine was sure, wanting nothing to do with it. And as one by one, my family members slipped off the boat to go into the area where the reef sharks are. Now, mind you, our incredible guide had gotten in first. He checked it out. He's like going in the water saying, I'm just going to see if they seem okay today and I'll let you know. And we're thinking, what's that going to look like? But anyway, they were okay. He said it was beautiful. And one by one, my brave family members slide off the boat into the water, some of them diving deep down, some of them floating on top. And when the last person, my dad, slid in, I suddenly had this incredible, soulful, calm, quiet voice say, go. And I knew I had to go. So I said to Clementine, you okay with this? Do you mind if I go? Because I didn't want to put her in a bad situation. And she said, no, go. I'm okay, but I don't want to go. And I said, that's great. You don't have to go. And I didn't go far. I traveled away from the boat a bit. I watched them swimming around. I saw the people, my family swimming with them. And it was so peaceful, so graceful, gorgeous, natural, beautiful, calm. And then it was enough. Then I got that little da-dun, 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 da-dun feeling. And I slowly, trying to look calm, cool, and nonchalant because I didn't want to, draw attention, I paddled back, got on the boat, exhaled, and just sat back for a moment. So once we were all done and back on the boat, then comes a new moment. This is where we start throwing fish into the water for the sharks to come and eat and enjoy. This is their thank you so much for hosting us in your beautiful oceanic living room. And here's a little something from us, a little thank you to the host's gift, if you will. And at that moment, the sharks became very much like the sharks of my nightmares, a feeding frenzy. And it occurred to me in that moment as I'm watching them jump up and snap and grab the fish, and the birds are trying to grab the fish out of the shark's mouth, and we're leaning over taking pictures and kind of, heart racing that we were just down there with them. it was very surreal. And it suddenly brought to mind that in yoga, we discuss the monkey mind as being an obstacle to our meditative practices. And it's when the surface of the mind is turbulent and chaotic, and we feel anxious and out of control. And that feeding frenzy with the sharks felt very much like that, very chaotic and sort of aggressive and all over the place and out of control, like a feeding frenzy. And when the mind is like that, it's wildly splashing from thought to thought. And it's hard to get a grip or focus or find clarity or even get out of a panicky moment. But there is this other place in the mind, and they coexist, and they exist even at the same time. But it's a matter of diving in. It's a matter of going a little deeper. Below the surface, when the sharks are swimming, it's calm, it's graceful, it's focused, it's in harmony with the environment. And our minds can be something we are afraid of when we don't understand it. We don't understand the mind. When we dive into the future, when we jump into the past. But there's something that you can do, and there's something that I do. And when your mind is wildly thrashing about, and your inner voice is saying, "It's okay, come on in, the water's fine." When those two things are coexisting, we're standing at a precipice, or we're standing on a ledge, and there's something you're called to do. And your habits, or what you've formed, or what you've been through, is standing right there, and it's kind of hollering loud, and it's saying, "Don't do it, it's safer here, in the familiar, in what we know." And certainly there is a time to listen to that fearful voice. I mean, we are wired for safety for a reason. But when you've also got that calm, deep, soulful, write the book, ask her out, change jobs, move to a new city, just try leaving the house today, right? When you hear that, you've got to listen. That is coming from the deep ocean of you. That is coming from the soul ocean of you, the wisdom that's accumulated, the knowledge, the experience, and your heart's joy, your heart's vision for yourself. So when you're hearing that, try imagining that you're standing on the boat and you're being the calm witness to that splashing and thrashing, the feeding frenzy of your mind, feeding on all the possible scenarios that could go wrong. Maybe a few kind of sneak in there, a few glimmers of what could go right, but just stand there within yourself, or sit there and ask yourself to consider, what else is there in this moment? Because down below that, there's some grace. There's some wisdom. There's something that wants you to hear it, to be born. There's something for you to try. And it might be scarier really not to, in the big picture, in the long run. So if you're standing or sitting in the witness place, and then you drop into your breath, like we did in our opening breath, and you take that portrait setting, become very connected to one simple thing in that moment, you can go beyond the surface level of thought, and you can ask your soul, you can ask the energy in your body, you can ask the wisdom of your depths a few questions that I'm going to pose to you right now. So if you're able to, you might want to write these down, and if you're not, come back to it later. Why do I want this? Why do I want this? You may not know yet, but you might also be surprised to hear what comes up. Next, why am I afraid? Why am I afraid? Just naming it starts to take some of its power away. The next one is, being afraid here helpful or hurtful? Is it helpful or is it hurtful? And we have to kind of dive into that one. Is this something that's going to keep me out of harm's way and that's obvious and clear? Or do I have a false sense of what's dangerous here? If I'm really looking at the facts, is this dangerous? Or am I just already triggered into fight, flight, or freeze? And so I'm experiencing the idea of it as dangerous. Right? Because when I was swimming in my pool worrying about sharks, that was an irrational fear. Once I got in the ocean, that could be called a reasonable fear. But I knew different in that moment. Asking these questions can just open some doors of great understanding. And here's a good one. Are scary things always dangerous? Are scary things always dangerous? A lot of the time they're not. And the last one, and this one I think is probably the most valuable in terms of moving forward in life. What will I lose if I don't try? And am I willing to live with that? What will I lose if I don't try? And am I willing to live with that? So for me in that moment of the sharks, I didn't know when I would ever be out in the middle of the Exuma Islands with the opportunity to do it. So that was for me what I would have lost and what I wasn't willing to lose. But we can apply this to so many daily things. Doesn't have to be as sort of grand or epic as that moment out there. It comes up every day just to make that call, even to check your bank balance, to walk out the door and go a different route. There's so many things where we come into that moment where we feel that rush of adrenaline. We might get a little sweaty. The body's reacting. And if we can just drop down for a moment and really check it out, not move in a reaction, not be so urgent, not get overwhelmed by the feeling, but get into that graceful, calm depth, we can make massive change for the better. So just take a deep breath and dip your toe in the water. Life is calling you to it. It's important that we keep growing. It's important that we find ways to get out of our own inner conflict. The head and the heart need to communicate and collaborate. And if you take the time for those quiet moments of reflection and trust that deeper, calm water, you might be surprised at the freedom and the power and the purpose you'll begin to feel. And if you choose not to go in, it's from wisdom, not fear. It's knowing your limits and exercising your boundaries, which is a whole different feeling than wanting to do something and not doing it only from fear. So trusting the deep, calm water has been this podcast for me. The closer to the water I got, the more my heart began to literally race. So many things coming up. I'm just going to be fully transparent here. Fear of vulnerability, fear of exposure, fear of messing up, not being good enough, saying too much, not saying enough. But then I remember there's a deeper place inside of me that's called out, that wants to hold your hand and say, come on, let's go in together. The water is beautiful, right? It could be really beautiful. So let's close our eyes. And if you're in a safe place to do so, if you're not, of course, then keep them open. But take a deep breath. Let it go. Drop your shoulders, unclench your jaw, and focus on the top of your head and forehead, where the thoughts might be swimming and splashing around. Maybe this has brought some things up for you. With every slow breath you now take, drop your shoulders. Drop below into your heart center, into the middle of your chest. Put a hand on your heart and ask, what do you want me to know? What do you want me to do? Take a deep breath Exhale and open your eyes. Okay. I thoroughly enjoyed this being with you today. Honestly, I can even feel your energy out there. I don't know who you are yet. I don't know where you are, but I can feel it, and I hope you can too. So if you enjoyed this, please come back, share it with anybody that you care about or think it would benefit. And also, be sure to check out my YouTube channel. More information on that to come. Sending you all the love. See you soon.